Most of the roles I got, people came after me. Universal, I helped write the pictures, put them on, so I never experienced that.
The name Don Knotts instantly stirs a warm ripple of recognition. Nervous stammers, bug-eyed glances, and that unmistakable high-pitched laugh have echoed across living rooms for generations. To millions, he will forever be Barney Fife, the bumbling deputy who transformed clumsiness into comedy on The Andy Griffith Show. 5 Emmys stand as proof of how deeply he etched himself into television history. Yet behind the applause and the perfectly timed pratfalls lived a man whose private reality was far more fragile than the characters he played. His daughter, Karen Knotts, now in her 70s, has chosen to reveal the hidden truths her father carried, a story of anxiety, illness, and loneliness that fame could never erase. Her aim is not to tarnish the memory of a beloved performer, but to complete it, showing the full measure of a man who turned pain into laughter and fear into unforgettable art. Karen recalls her father as gentle and loving, but also restless, often haunted by thoughts he rarely shared aloud. She describes nights when Don would pace the house long after everyone else was asleep, as though silence itself pressed too heavily on him. In interviews, Karen explains that telling his deeper story is a way to honor the complexity of the man behind the television legend. He gave so much joy to the world, she has said, but he carried a lot of sorrow inside. Don's anxious energy, which audiences found hilarious, was rooted in a lifelong battle with nerves and self-doubt. The twitch of his shoulders, the quick flutter of his eyes, these were not mere comic affectations, but reflections of an inner storm. Karen believes that acknowledging those struggles does not diminish his legacy. Instead, it highlights the courage it took for him to keep performing, night after night, while wrestling with fears that never fully loosened their grip. Jesse Donald Knotts was born on July 21, 1924, in Morgantown, West Virginia, the youngest of 4 brothers. His arrival came at a difficult time for the family. His mother, Elsie Lucetta, was 40, and already weary from years of raising 3 active boys. His father, William Jesse, battled unpredictable moods and personal demons that often turned the household tense and unpredictable. Stability was a luxury the Knotts family rarely enjoyed, and young Don absorbed every unsettling moment. The age gap between Don and his brothers meant companionship was scarce. The older boys lived largely in their own worlds, leaving Don to wander through childhood in a kind of lonely orbit. Yet he idolized his brother Sid, whose natural humor could brighten the darkest day. Sid became both a confidant and a model for the wry wit that would later define Don's career. When Sid died suddenly of an asthma attack, the loss carved a permanent shadow across Don's heart. It was his first confrontation with mortality and the first proof that joy could vanish without warning. To cope, Don retreated into imagination. He built a ventriloquist's dummy he named Danny, crafting silly dialogues and slapstick routines that allowed him to transform pain into play. With Danny, he could invent a world where laughter drowned out tension. At school, his natural knack for comedy emerged more publicly. He performed sketches that delighted classmates who eventually elected him class president. Yet even with their admiration, Don often felt like an outsider looking in. The gap between how others saw him, charming, funny, quick-witted, and how he felt inside, nervous, inadequate, became a pattern that would follow him for life. Karen later reflected that her father's trademark high-strung persona wasn't an act at all. Every exaggerated twitch, every wide-eyed look, it all came from something real, she explained. Comedy was his armor. By making people laugh, he found a way to quiet the shadows within, even if only for a moment. Encouraged by early school successes, Don began to dream of a career in entertainment. After high school, he set his sights on New York City, convinced that the big stage awaited. He scraped together savings and traveled north, carrying little more than a suitcase and determination. But New York proved unforgiving. Auditions led nowhere, rejections piled up, and the city's indifference stung his already fragile confidence. Disheartened, he returned to West Virginia, unsure if he would ever find a place in show business. Still, the spark refused to die. Even as he worked odd jobs, Don kept experimenting with comedic voices and routines. Humor remained his lifeline, a private rehearsal for the future he still believed might be possible. That persistence would soon meet an unexpected opportunity, one that came not from a theater marquee but from the call of duty. In 1943, with World War II raging, Don enlisted in the United States Army. Instead of a combat post, he was assigned to the 6,817th Special Services Battalion, a unit dedicated to entertaining troops stationed far from home. Traveling across the Pacific with the touring variety show Stars and Gripes, Don discovered a new kind of stage. His nervous energy, once a source of personal torment, became a powerful comedic tool. Soldiers weary from battle roared with laughter at his jittery antics, recognizing their own fears mirrored in his exaggerated expressions. The experience transformed him. Performing for men who faced danger daily taught Don that comedy could be more than amusement. It could be relief, even salvation. He honed impeccable timing and learned to command a crowd, skills that would serve him for the rest of his career. When he left the Army in 1946, he carried not only medals, the World War II Victory Medal, the Philippine Liberation Medal, and 4 Bronze Service Stars, but also a sharpened stage presence and a newfound confidence that he had never felt at home. Back in civilian life, Don poured his energy into entertainment. He landed small gigs on radio and in local theaters, each performance refining the nervy, quick-witted character audiences would soon adore. Television was still young, and Don sensed its potential. He earned roles on early variety programs and gradually became known for the high-strung, lovable misfit that would become his signature. The true breakthrough arrived when he joined the Andy Griffith Show in 1960 as Deputy Barney Fife. Week after week, Don transformed nervousness into comedic brilliance, creating a character so memorable that he won 5 Emmy Awards during his 5 seasons on the series. Viewers cherished Barney's blunders and heartfelt loyalty, but few realized that the same anxious energy fueling their laughter mirrored the man himself. Off-camera, Don continued to wrestle with the anxiety and self-doubt that had haunted him since childhood. Yet he never allowed those struggles to diminish his craft. Instead, he used them, turning personal unease into a universal language of comedy that resonated across generations. Beyond the Andy Griffith Show, Don's career flourished in films like The Incredible Mr. Limpet and television appearances that showcased his unique brand of humor. Still, the glitz of Hollywood never erased the quiet battles he fought within. Friends recall that despite his fame, he often preferred solitude, finding comfort in small gatherings rather than grand parties. His laughter on screen was genuine, but it coexisted with a persistent undercurrent of vulnerability. When Don Knotts passed away in 2006, the world remembered the timeless comedian whose nervous charm had brightened countless lives. For Karen, the loss was deeply personal, but she felt compelled to share the fuller truth of her father's life. She speaks not of a tragic figure, but of a man whose courage lay in transforming private pain into public joy. His legacy, she believes, is not only the Emmy-winning performances, but also the quiet resilience behind them. Don Knotts showed that laughter can spring from the deepest wells of anxiety and still lift the hearts of millions. He remains a reminder that comedy is not the absence of struggle, but often its most eloquent expression. The little boy from Morgantown who once sought refuge in an imaginary friend grew into an artist who made the world his audience, proving that even fragile souls can leave indelible marks. Through Karen's recollections, we see the whole man, beloved entertainer, devoted father, and a gentle spirit who turned fear into something beautiful, a lifetime of laughter that continues to echo long after the curtain fell. Don's career never ended with the Andy Griffith Show. After leaving Mayberry, he signed a landmark 5-film deal with Universal Pictures, stepping into a series of family-friendly comedies such as The Ghost and Mr. Chicken and The Reluctant Astronaut. These films showcased his knack for physical comedy and nervous charm, proving he could carry a feature on his own. Critics sometimes underestimated these light-hearted roles, but audiences adored them, and they helped secure Don's place as a versatile entertainer who could captivate far beyond a single character. Behind the steady stream of work, Don continued to wrestle with the same anxieties that had trailed him since childhood. Close friends recalled nights when he would worry over the smallest details, a line reading, a scheduling change, even a missed phone call. He sought therapy, embraced meditation, and leaned on a tight circle of confidants, but the undercurrent of tension never fully disappeared. Rather than retreat, Don turned these struggles into material, allowing his on-screen fidgets and rapid-fire dialogue to mirror the real sensations coursing through him. In that honesty lay his magic. Viewers recognized themselves in his awkwardness and felt less alone. In the late 1970s and 80s, a new generation discovered Don through roles on Three's Company and frequent guest appearances on television variety shows. He brought the same quick timing and self-deprecating wit, proving that age had only sharpened his instincts. Younger co-stars often spoke of his generosity on set, how he offered guidance with a gentle word or a perfectly timed joke, never overshadowing others despite his legendary status. Away from the spotlight, Don cherished his role as a father. Karen recalls quiet evenings when they would share stories, watch old movies, or simply sit in comfortable silence. Despite a life spent performing for millions, Don valued these private moments most. After his passing in 2006, tributes poured in from fans and fellow performers alike. They celebrated not just a gifted comedian, but a man who, despite lifelong anxiety, turned vulnerability into a universal language of laughter. As the years passed, the entertainment industry never forgot Don's influence. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2000, a moment he approached with characteristic humility. Colleagues from television, film, and theater gathered to share stories of his impeccable timing and generosity. Many emphasized that Don elevated everyone around him, whether through a subtle suggestion during rehearsals or a quiet word of encouragement backstage. These tributes underscored that his impact reached well beyond the characters he played. Though he often portrayed the flustered everyman, Don approached comedy with almost scientific precision. He studied pacing, experimented with pauses, and rehearsed expressions until they felt effortless. Fellow actors noted how he could stretch a single raised eyebrow into a punchline or transform a simple entrance into a highlight of the show. Don believed comedy was a craft that demanded discipline, and he treated each performance as a fresh opportunity to connect. This dedication helped his work remain timeless, as fresh today as it was decades ago. Young comedians frequently cite Don Knotts as a formative inspiration. His ability to mix vulnerability with impeccable comedic timing paved the way for performers who balance humor and humanity. Sitcom actors from the 1990s to today often speak of studying his episodes of The Andy Griffith Show to learn the delicate art of physical comedy. Through reruns, streaming platforms, and film revivals, his style continues to teach aspiring entertainers that true comedy often springs from honesty and a willingness to embrace one's own quirks. Even after his passing, Don's presence lingers wherever laughter is cherished. Community theaters still stage tributes to his work, and festivals in his hometown of Morgantown celebrate his legacy each year. Fans across generations share stories of discovering his performances with parents or grandparents, proof that his humor transcends time. Karen often reflects that her father would be amazed and a little bashful at how his art still brings people together. Decades after the cameras stopped rolling, long after the Andy Griffith Show ended, Don remained closely linked to the quiet charm of Mayberry. He often returned for special reunions and fan conventions where audiences greeted him like an old friend. Don welcomed these gatherings with warmth, sharing behind-the-scenes stories of late-night script rewrites and the camaraderie he enjoyed with Andy Griffith. For fans, these appearances were a chance to relive an era when television was simpler. For Don, they were an affirmation that the laughter he created still resonated decades later. Younger performers who worked with Don in his later years frequently described him as a natural mentor. On sets, he offered gentle coaching on timing and physical comedy, often illustrating a gag with a small demonstration that left everyone laughing. Actors who came of age in the 1980s and 1990s recall his patient advice about the discipline of rehearsals and the importance of kindness in a competitive industry. His legacy as a teacher of comedy became nearly as strong as his on-screen fame. Despite his celebrity, Don valued privacy. He preferred quiet evenings with close friends or family to glitzy Hollywood parties. Karen remembers simple dinners at home, where her father would share stories and indulge in the comfort of familiar surroundings. This love of ordinary moments kept him grounded and allowed him to maintain the gentle humility that endeared him to so many. Reruns of The Andy Griffith Show and his classic films continue to attract new viewers, proving that Don's brand of humor is truly ageless. Streaming platforms introduce his work to audiences far removed from the black-and-white television era. Comedy historians note that his precise timing and ability to balance vulnerability with hilarity set a standard that modern sitcoms still strive to match. Whether it's a child laughing at Barney Fife's latest blunder or an adult admiring his craft, Don Knotts' performances remain as vibrant as ever. Ultimately, Don Knotts' story is one of quiet courage. He transformed lifelong anxiety into a source of universal laughter, showing that vulnerability can become a powerful form of connection. Through every nervous glance and perfectly timed pause, he reminded the world that humor often springs from the deepest places of the heart. Today, his life stands as both inspiration and comfort, a testament that even fragile souls can leave an unshakable mark on culture and on countless lives.